Good morning, Professor Burugbi. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thank you.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Dr.
No
Shemi.
problem. No problem. You deserve everything.
Thank you. Thank you. You're
You are the leaders. You are the leaders of scientific activities.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wish you good luck.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll meet face to face soon.
But my name is a participant, not Borik. Mr. Participant.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Shemi.
Good morning.
Morning. How are you? Ready for your presentation?
Inshallah, inshallah.
Good.
You can hear me, Dr. Khawra?
Yes, I can. Very well. Good morning, Ahmed. Good morning, Yusra. Dr. Yusra.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Great. Well, I will send a reminder to the participants that we are here. We'll start in 8 minutes. In these 10 minutes, from 9 to 10, it's supposed to be me opening the session, the day. It's okay, we can wait for people to come. And Dr. Shemi, who is starting the first presentation of today's session, he's here. And then after you, it's
Mrs. Iman.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to be here. And the third one is Yusra, and she's here.
Yes.
And the fourth ones are not here yet.
Salma Sushan and Masoudi Bujrida.
I'm sending them an email now. Did you enjoy the keynote speech yesterday? I love the writers.
Very. They were quite engaging.
Yeah, oh my God. And they are so knowledgeable in the field. I worked on eco-criticism in my PhD, and I used to read the books written by Scott Slovic, and seeing him talk is something big for me, at least. Dr. Shemi, do you want to share to try to share your screen if you have a PPT presentation?
I'll try to
See if
share.
it works for you.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we do. Do you want to, can you move the slides, please? Because yesterday some people weren't able to,
For now, it's okay.
yeah, do you want to go to, will you go to the second slide, please, so that we see if it's moving or not? Yeah, perfect.
It's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Yusra, please, do you want to share your screen? If you have a presentation. Yusra?
Is it visible?
Perfect. Yes,
Okay.
it is. Great. Good morning, everyone, again. And Professor Burekbi, I think you should start your session.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Khawla bin Jamil. Good morning, everybody. Good morning for all. Assalamu alaikum. It is my honor to preside over the plenary session 1 and 2 of the second day of the colloquium. So, first of all, before starting, I would like to ask everyone not to exceed the time allotted to him or her, which is 10 minutes. So, we go to Dr. Amin Shami from the University of Aflo, Algeria. The paper is entitled Apocalyptic Narrative, Pestilence and the Romance of the End. So the mic is yours. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Professor. I will start, So good morning, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank you, Professor. Secondly, I would like to thank the President of our international conference, the scientific and the organizing committee of the conference. Now, my communication is entitled by Apocalyptic Narrative, Pestilence and the Romance of the End. Now, in the beginning of my presentation, I would like to say that apocalyptic narrative are common theme in literature and other forms of storytelling. These narratives typically revolve around the end of the world or the collapse of our society that we know today, of the world that we know today. It explores the themes of survival, human nature, the consequences of the end of the world is before, after the end of the world. So apocalyptic is difficult for its pronunciation. It's originally, why? Because it is originally taken from the Greek word. It's the same. So that means it means or
There's a problem of sound of the mic. We don't hear well. Dr. Shami? Dr. Shami? We don't hear your voice.
I think he lost his internet. He's back.
Okay.
I think if Yusra is ready, can you start your presentation instead? Yusra, please.
Yes, can I?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
What do you think, Professor Burgdi?
Yeah, of course, we are not supposed to waste time. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen.
Let me
real quick.
present you first. Okay, so your name is Iman Yusra.
No, Terbish
Yusra.
Yusra.
Okay, Yusra Terbish from the University of Ain Tmushant. The title is Voicing Female Characters as They Find Their Apocalyptic Sweet Home. So the floor is yours. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
greetings, everyone.
Okay.
Yes, greetings, everyone, and happy Eid to all those who celebrate. Special thanks, of course, goes to all the organizers of this this intellectual festival. My name is Sirba Shisra, and I'm from Ain Tmushant University, and my presentation is entitled Voicing Female Characters as They Find Their Apocalyptic Sweet Home. Now, as an introduction, we can say that literature constantly reinvents itself, and even in great distress, literary productions prove to be a sanctuary. The year is 2020, and COVID-19 is conquering the world, including literature and the media. Now, apocalyptic narratives were one of the genres that were revisited at this time because of their similarities to the global situation. And this was made, this was made easy by means of platforms such as Netflix. And that in turn opened a new market of production for consumption in the form of apocalyptic K-dramas. Now, before I delve into the analysis part of this presentation, I will go over some, key theoretical concepts. So, what in the world is a K-drama? It is these TV shows that are produced in South Korea in the Korean language, and they gained immense international popularity for their distinctive nature. They're characterized by being short, by being available on streaming platforms, by being emotional regardless of the genre, and by representing that authentic South Korean society in a way, and the other way, they tend to try to break from the usual Korean societal norms. Now, Netflix became interested in K-dramas around the years 2014, 2016. At first, they tried to acquire rights to stream the shows that were domestically produced in Korea. But after 2016, they started to exclusively produce for their own platform with shows such as Love Alarm, Kingdom, Squid Game, and the show that I'm going to talk about in this presentation, that is Sweet Home. Again, COVID-19, uncertain times, people are out of patience, and binge watching sort of became a savior for people. They tried to chase psychological thrills and explore the unthinkable in the form of apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic K-dramas streamed on Netflix. And with that, we can say that COVID-19 helped produce stories that openly discuss psychological and sociocultural aspects of life. It provided escapism, exploring the extreme. It mirrored, or the shows or the literature that was produced mirrored anxieties and the existential threat that people felt. Some even gave survival tips, and at the end, it was all about solidarity and spreading hope. This is Sweet Home, and as I said, it is a South Korean apocalyptic drama that streamed on Netflix on December the 18th of 2020. All 10 episodes were made available on the same day in the airing style of Netflix. It was usually or originally a Korean webtoon, and then it became a show. So the premise of the story is that the apocalypse has started and people are having symptoms, nosebleeds and hallucinations, and at the end they change to monsters according to their desires. And here it follows the protagonist and his neighbors as they try to survive against monsters lurking in and outside of their apartment complex. Now, why this paper chose to analyze Sweet Home? Because there wasn't a lot of research done on it, at least outside of South Korean research, which is why I chose to expand the horizon. And because apocalyptic narratives are said by some scholars to be brutal, and K-drama to promote purity, and that put these two elements in this misogynistic space. And for that, I will focus the analysis on female characters, namely Jinwook, Myeonsuk, Sunyoung, and Yigyung, through a feminist lens that investigates their representation, whether they were put into these gender roles, whether they were reinforced or subverted, and basically just highlight female characters' relations and decisions to the apocalyptic setting. First, we have the mothers, the good versus the bad. And on the left here, we have this character, Cha Jin-wook, and she is this unsympathetic woman who witnesses her daughter's death at the hand of a monster. She has this mental breakdown, she has a lot of rage and a lot of misplaced blame, and the apocalypse sort of taught her a lesson in a reprimanding manner, I'd say. The way, I mean, she just witnessed the death of her daughter, and that is, she is allowed to have a mental breakdown, but the way it was written and edited in the show sort of it sparks annoyance and, just distaste in the viewers, and that was sort of dubious on the part of the writers. Well, here on the left, Im Myeonsuk, she is this sweet lady who lost her baby before the apocalypse and kind of retreated into herself. She doesn't hold a lot of blame. She's very soft-spoken, and she just wants to help any child out there, and that's it. She was the first actually character to confront a monster, just stand there and attempt to talk to a big scary monster. It was really interesting to have a female character do that. And that kind of made her come out of her shell, and in a way the apocalypse gave her purpose, or gave her her life back in a way. Now, on the part of Cha Jin-wook, there weren't many meaningful interactions with the hero of the story. But Myeong-suk, who is really irrelevant to his journey, she shows him that Stranger's life is justifiably worth defending. She champions both her gender and the progression of the apocalyptic setting and plot, because later on she turns into a harmless monster, and that defies what we have been told from the beginning, what have been established in this show. And that is a new trajectory. There's a lot you can do with that, and represents hope for the hero's own condition, because up until then he was also fighting his own transition, and now he has this new outlet where he's thinking, well, even if I turn, I have the chance to be a harmless monster. Next, we have An Son-young here on the top, and she's this sweet old lady who was openly abused by her husband. She forms a bond with So-young here at the bottom, who was the first to defend her against him. She's depicted as affectionate and compassionate despite her situation. But however, after the death of her husband, she starts having symptoms, and that was sort of questionable and sort of sad in a way, because only after his death that she starts desiring life and living. However, in this setting, it is doomed by an impending monstrous change. She apologizes to the hero for not knowing how difficult it is to fight the transition, and this was his. It was like the first time the hero was shown compassion by an adult. She's later on also killed for the sake of the progression of the hero's journey, which again is all but heartbreaking. Lastly, we have So-young, and she is a firefighter and a new character that did not exist in the source material. Now, even though she is a wife herself, that does not take a big part of her character. It is mentioned once, and that is that she's actually referred to by her job more than once. She's quite subversive of the usual feminine role in physique and job, as you see in the picture, but that does not spare her from being taken advantage of and being pregnant for the first half of, or most of the first season. Her husband was one of the first to manifest symptoms, which makes her an important character in the upcoming season, because she's going to do a lot of investigation into what actually happened. As a conclusion, we can say that there were some stereotypical portrayals of women, along with the presence of at least one weakness in each female character. However, there were characters such as So-young, which is a step into subverting the traditional ways. There were great woman-woman interactions. sort of balance the suffering, and the majority of female characters seem to emerge from traumatic events due to the apocalypse to become better versions of themselves and to better the hero's journey, a young man who lost his way. The show's very rich, seeing that there's still a lot to dissect and discover in a different million ways. These were the references that I used, and I thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yusra Terbesh, for this presentation. She is really very rich and enriching, and probably you will expect some questions at the end of the session. Now, do we go back to, or shall we go back to Dr. Amin?
Yes, please, he's here.
Okay, okay. So he can carry on. Yes. Dr. Amin Shami, the floor is yours. So you carry on, please.
Good morning.
It's okay, but your PPT are not on the screen.
So I will share it.
Okay.
Astaghfirullah. Allah ma yarab.
Did you send it to the technicians? They can share it on your behalf.
So I will share it this way. Astaghfirullah.
So good morning.
Dr. Amin,
So
you carry on. Okay, the floor is yours.
Is it-
We have problem of mic. We have breaking in your voice.
I thought now that
Okay,
is it clear now?
it's okay. It's okay. Yes.
So as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, so sorry for this problem of net connection. So
Yes.
when talking
It's
about
okay. Okay.
yes, when we're talking about apocalyptic narrative, so we have a nuclear apocalypse, zombie apocalypse, environmental apocalypse, and pandemic apocalypse. And also we have alien invasion. So essentially, apocalyptic narrative is for the end of the world.
Okay.
So what do we have for the characteristic of the apocalyptic narrative? So when talking about apocalyptic narrative, we have four criterion criteria for apocalyptic narratives. Firstly, is a narrative form. So essentially, is by narrating, it means storytelling or short story, novel, or novella. That's what do we do for by apocalyptic narrative. The second is a tragic language. The third is a pessimistic view of the present. And the fourth one is only about the ending or the end of the world. It's only a final event of the world. So the reasons for why do we tell stories about the end of the world? Firstly, because people or they say every story has an end and the world has an end, and they by citing and setting apocalyptic narrative, they are looking for the end of the world. Second reason is that when people die, it means they are looking what is after. Religiously speaking, is not for Muslim, but is for other religions. So they look for what is after death. The third one, or the why to apocalyptic narrative, it is firstly by setting a context for your narrative. It means pre, post, and during the ending of the world. That's the second is the why. It means, as we mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, that we have nuclear, zombie, environmental, alien. So the why to apocalyptic narrative, it means what is it? It means they look by setting the apocalyptic narrative, we set the why of ending the world. The third is we pay attention for characters. It means our characters, we pay attention for choosing them. It's not haphazardly chosen. So because I exceed my time and I disturb the organizing committee, I also disturb our president, Professor. So I will conclude my presentation by saying that apocalyptic narrative, it's a way of questioning what will happen after or before or during the end of the world. So it is a way of I don't know, analyzing and synthesizing what's going on after the end of the world. It's not for essentially it's not for Muslims, because it's clear for the vision is clear for Muslims, but for other maybe also for Christians, but for other religions is not clear. So thank you, Mr. President, and sorry for this.
No problem. Thank you very much. So the next participant is Dr. Selma Shushan and Miss Ouda Boujerida from University of Sétif de Algeria and the University Center of Milan. So I don't know whether they are present or not. They are online or not.
Yes,
Okay.
I
So is Shushan Selma. So
yes.
welcome. Okay, so the floor is yours. Don't
Thank
exceed
you.
10 minutes. So good
I
luck.
hope so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want first to thank the president of the conference. Is my screen shared? I don't know. Yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so I want first to thank the president of the conference, Dr. Khawla Benjamil, for this interesting topic. I want also to thank all the organizers who worked hard to make the scientific event successful. So I am Dr. Salma Shushan from Setiftu University, and I will present the work alone because my colleague, Ms. Boudrida, is absent due to an important issue. So without wasting time, our presentation is entitled T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, Frightening Visions of the Destiny of Mankind. So although our presentation is not about plague, but apocalyptic literature, still the two genres have many things in common. So they both describe a catastrophe that causes mass fear and mass death. The Wasteland is a masterpiece of modernist literature that explores modern man's disillusionment and suffering in the aftermath of the First World War. It presents a bleak and apocalyptic vision of the world, which witnesses different kinds of decay and thus symbolically becomes a waste and sterile land. To emphasize this apocalyptic image, Eliot continuously contrasts the utopian past with the empty present and the dystopian future. In this presentation, we examine Eliot's frightening visions of the destiny of mankind to demonstrate how a century after the publication of The Wasteland, the world is still in a state of continuous collapse. Apocalyptic literature is a genre of writing that typically deals with the world's coming end, which is perceived in the form of pessimistic visions and frightening prophecies of the destiny of mankind. These visions and prophecies intervene in the normal course of a personal or communal experience to interpret that experience and foresee its outcomes. Apocalyptic literature often explores the theme of divine judgment, human suffering, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. The Wasteland constructs an apocalyptic image of the world, different themes and images. So the poet described the modern world as a barren, desert-like world that has lost its fertility and ability to bring forth life. It is a land without water or even the sound of water, only stones that toll like bells. Eliot gives us horrific images such as hordes of grasshoppers that eat and destroy everything and bats with baby faces. He also sheds light on the empty chapels and the half-coming of Christ, which shows that the modern man has lost his spirituality and faith to the extent that he cannot recognize the presence of Christ. Eliot describes great cities fallen. Also, he apocalyptically exhibits the emptiness and horror of such a dried life by focusing on people's failing attempts to find meaning and purpose in a post-war world. Also, the poet insists that there is no rest from suffering. In part 5, Eliot explicitly makes use of an apocalyptic motive. In this part, we find that all creatures are gathered waiting for the thunder to speak. The thunder refers to the voice of God. So this scene makes us think about the Judgment Day. So Eliot uses two visionaries or seers to give us visions of human existence. We have Madame Sosostris and Tiresias, the mythological prophet. So Madame Sosostris reveals the truth of the contemporary world with her tarot cards. Her revelation is successful in the sense that she describes the whole substance of the text. Her tarot cards cover two important themes: living, death, and sexuality. For living death, she shows the client as well as the reader the card of the drowned Phoenician sailor. Later, she refers to him as the one-eyed merchant. She says, "Those are pearls that where his eyes look." The eyes that are becoming pure suggest that there is no complete death. There is no decomposition of his body. So this is a state of life in death. Madame Sosostris also tells us about undead crowds of people. She says, I see crowds of people walking around in a ring. This is a hell image that Eliot later gives more details about it. He describes London as hell, and the crowds are as not physically but spiritually dead. Madame Sosostris, however, didn't find the card of the hanged man, which refers to Christ. So there is no resurrection or rebirth. Here we see that death is both a source of fear and desire. People are afraid of death, but it is the only solution to end suffering and reach rebirth. The second point that Madame Sosostris refers to is sexuality. She talks about the belladonna, who symbolizes the female archetype in the poem, and the Fisher King, who symbolizes the male archetype figure in the poem, to refer to the unhealthy sexuality and infertility of both the modern man and the modern woman. However, although Madame Sosostris is the most expressive prophetic voice in the poem, she is forbidden to see some cards, which makes her vision fragmentary and terrifying. The second prophetic voice is Tiresias. He is a unifying voice of the poem. He represents all mankind. He offers no revelation in spite of the fact that he has seen everything. So he is a symbol of prophetic impotence, who sees but does not communicate in the way that Madame Sosostris does. Finally, the wasteland and COVID-19 pandemic. So Eliot foreshadowed a dystopian future. He said that the wasteland needs water. Later, he has reduced his hope to the sound of water, and finally he concludes, but there is no water. Also, pessimism is also seen in the rebirth that is conditioned by people's regaining faith. Vision in the poem is elusive and frightening to the extent that even the visionary who receives it is unable to find a substantive way to interpret and or communicate it. So here we find the continuous collapse. The word that becomes a wasteland, sterile land, and the word during COVID-19 pandemic can be both seen as punishment of God, because people are more and more giving up their faith in God. Both disasters affect the whole world, in Eliot's words, Gentile or Jew. Also, selfishness and individuality still persist. We find also the same loneliness and skepticism. And finally, in both situations, people are living dead. So they have the same feeling of fear of death and the desire for death. All these make us realize that we are living the dystopian future foreshadowed by Eliot 1 century ago. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your important and substantial presentation.
Most welcome.
And I think you expect some questions because of the importance of your paper. Thanks a lot. So we go to Ms. Iman Shekhnaba from the University of Saida with a paper entitled Questioning Human Romance During COVID-19, Psychoanalysis of Layaliyat Ramadan by Wasin Al-Arj. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you so much for all the organizing committee. Thank you so much for Dr. Khawla Benjamil for her kind words, for her response to my emails. Thank you for giving me this chance to take part in your scientific event. Actually, the title is Leyliyat Ramada by Wassini Laraj. I have already sent you my PTT presentation because I cannot share it with some technical issues. So my topic is today about questioning human rumors during the COVID-19, a psychoanalysis of Leyliyat Ramada by Wassini Laraj. So my topic is designed as the following. I have the introduction, understanding human rumors during the COVID-19, an overview about the novel, psychoanalysis of Leyliyat Ramada, and the relevance and implication of the psychoanalysis presented in the novel, and conclusion. Now, due to the health condition experienced by ancient societies where numerous diseases and epidemics such as smallpox, plague, cholera, and influenza spread, they were subject to isolation, or what is known in our era with the spread of COVID-19 pandemic as home quarantine. So this served as a motivation to curb the spread of the disease, leading writers and creators to chronicle these periods. Thus emerged what is known as the literature of isolation or pandemic literature. It cannot be claimed that all writers wrote their literature during that period, but there were those who lived through it and their rights and wrote about it. So in parallel to our present era, we found authors who have written about the COVID-19 pandemic in real time, in real time of that period. So in this context, we can mention the novelist Wassini Laraj, who through his novel Leyliyat Ramada transformed the dead into life. He not only made the reader forget their imposed isolation, but also immersed them in deciphering and deciphering the code of the context. Its apparent theme of the pandemic, disease, death, and the underlying events. He achieved this through the use of the blue space or Facebook, where the readers transcend their isolation and delivered into depths of the narrative. And this is what makes this novel special, because Wassini Laraj takes this experimental thing, or takes this new way of sharing with the reader the events of the story through the social media. This is to break really the isolation. So as a research aims, the aim of my research is to analyze the portrayal of human rumors in the novel Leyliyat Ramada by Wassini Laraj during the COVID-19, and examine the psychological and emotional challenges faced by the author and the characters at the same time in their romantic relationships in the context of the pandemic, because really the characters are reflecting the period, are reflecting the psychological state of all people. Gain insight into the ways in which the novel during the COVID-19 and provide a deeper understanding of psychological dimension involved. And in order to reach these aims, we have some questions that are raised. How does the COVID-19 pandemic influence the portrayal of human rumors in the novel Leyliyat Ramada by Wassini Laraj? And how do the author and the characters in Leyliyat Ramada navigate and cope with the psychological and emotional challenges in their romantic relationships during the COVID-19 pandemic? Now, in order to get in all this, we have to have an idea about the isolation literature. So how can we have this important question? How can we understand isolation literature, and how is the term pandemic associated with literature to the extent that is called isolation literature or pandemic literature? Now, isolation literature is considered one of the most significant literary genres that was and still have impact on literature in general, and specifically on Arabic literature. So many works of international literature that fall under this genre have been translated, such as, for example, the well-known work for the Colombian writer Gabriel Marquez, Love in the Times of Cholera, and Journal of the Plague Year of Daniel Defoe, and the well-known piece of literature written by Albert Camus, La Peste. So we have many other works that most of writings revolves around a health crisis and has overwhelmed the world entirely, making it a rich subject for literary exploration. Now, if we start from this perspective, we can also refer to this literary genre as a pandemic literature because it is associated with a specific period of time or a health crisis that affected the world, imposing a complete isolation and leading to the creation of numerous creative works, including poetry.
I'm very sorry, try to sum up or go to the conclusion. Only 3 minutes left.
Yeah, really? Okay, so this is concerning isolation literature. Now, to have an overview about the novel. So the novel Liliet Ramada revolves around Ramada, a woman on the verge of divorce from her troubled husband. Her life takes a drastic turn when she encounters Shahid, a famous musician visiting Algeria to perform a national opera house before returning to Vienna. So their meeting sparks a profound connection and they embark on a passionate and adventurous journey together, rediscovering the joy of life. So now we have to get to the relevance of the psychoanalysis. So inside the novel, we can notice the loneliness and isolation that people live during that period. And at the same time, what left Shahid with Ramada. Now, the second one is about the psychological struggle. For example, the protagonist's affair with Ramada, while she is still married, can be analyzed in terms of repressed desires and the research for emotional fulfillment during a time of crisis. Now we move to the unconscious motivation. So through dreams, analysis, and symbolism, psychoanalysis can shed light on the character's unconscious motivation. So here we can see that the protagonist's encounter with Ramada near to the sea and their subsequent intimacy may represent a desire for escape and temporary break from the harshness of reality of the pandemic. Another important element is about the defense mechanism. For instance, Ramada's decision to write letters to Shahid, despite knowing he cannot read them, may be seen as a defense mechanism to alleviate her feelings of helplessness and maintain a sense of connection. Now, the last one is about meaning of life and existential question. So the story here raises existential question about the meanings of life and the fragility of human existence. So the protagonist's questioning of everything upon seeing Shahid with another girl on TV reflects the existential dilemma faced when confronted with uncertainty and the potential loss of romantic relation in that period. The novel also analyzes and is important, tackles important thing, which is the metaphorical structures of the novel. So when we examine the novel Liliet Ramada and search for the elements of imagination, we can say that the entire novel is a metaphorical structure in which the author speaks from an imaginary city. So this city doesn't have a pre-existing model in the collective imagination, but it is a city born from the realm of individual imagination. However, despite this, the writer drew inspiration from references or reality to establish his city, where most of the events of the novel inform. So the three important things that are fold as a metaphorical here in this novel. So we have the first one, which is sharing the readers. So the novelist provided the readers through a virtual platform the opportunity to engage with the text night after night. So he gave them this behavior or this episodes every Sunday and Thursday, and he shared with the readers. They read the rest each time they read part of the novel, and they comment about it. And sometimes their comments are taken into consideration to take part in the novel. And this is very important. And this is what Wassini El Araj do. And this is the first time done by an Arab writer. The second thing is the writing as an escape
Please do go to the
from
conclusion,
death.
please.
Yes, yes, I am in the conclusion. The second one is the writing on as an escape from death. So writing here makes the readers the writer escape from death, as makes the same thing as Ramada, who writes love letters to Shahid that escapes from death. The last thing is the Covid land, which is really taken from the word Covid and land, and it is an imaginary land. While reading it, you can see that it is talking about Algeria, about different periods of time of Algeria during terrorism, after terrorism, because Ramada tells a story, different stories every day that writes to Shahid. So as a conclusion here, we can say that really Lady Ramada reflects what happened in the COVID-19, and it is really a leading experience that Wassini El Araj takes it to share it with his readers through the blue word, which is the Facebook. He creates really an imagined land, which is a COVID land that takes from different plagues names, for example, cholera land, Pollux land, and so on, until he arrives to COVID land. So all these, through this and that, through the exploration of all the unconsciousness desire that is reflected in this story, we can unravel the complexities of human romance in times of crisis and shed light on the profound impact of the pandemic on individual psychological well-being. And thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for your papers that are very rich. And now the debate is open. The questions are in a way open. So I have some comments, if you don't mind. On the paper of Dr. Amin. Dr. Amin, first of all, your color, the color of your slides or PPT are black and white. The question why? Does it reflect the context of the colloquium or not, or what? And you said esoteric language. And you know, we have a very famous Algerian in a way scholar that University of Annaba in a way holds his name is Ahmed El-Bouni, who wrote Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, which is the third layer of language reading, because language is something and the meaning is something else. The meaning is the sum of words that are beyond their composition. Then I go to Dr. Yusra Terbesh. You said voicing the female characters. My question is, are they voiceless or devoiced? And by whom or by what? And you said escapism. Don't you, is it a positive, it is a positive act in the pandemic? And this sweet home, because we all have sweet homes within us. Even the act of writing is the act of creating a home of our own within this world. For Shushan, the wasteland for Shushan, the wasteland, and it looks strangely to things for the part of Yeats. And you have spoken a lot about the living dead. And you know, they have said something about death and barrenness. Death for modern and postmodern writers, in a way, is a source of fear. And at the same time, death awaits everybody. It is the certainty within this uncertain world. The only certainty is death. And Ellen Sixu describes death, defines death as a signifier without signifiers. Kierkegaard defines, in a way, death. For him, death is a kind of madness. Madness is death in life, because the one who is mad is already dead. For Virginia Woolf, our memory, what is madness? Is a kind of death that has no reference. Memory is in a way something that exists without having any reference. You said dystopian future. How can we judge the not yet as dystopian? The future is the expected, the not yet. Then how can we say that it is dystopian? We go to Leyliyat Ramada. First of all, have you read the novel in Arabic or in English translation? And if yes, it is better to write the original in Arabic. For example, I read Shahid, not Shahid. Shahid is very significant. So, Shahid and death, it has a meaning. Al-Ramada, why not Layali instead of Layliyat? So he means something. Al-Rajul, Al-Rijalat, they mean something. So we try to understand beyond what he is expecting to say. These are some, in a way, words that I have taken down through, in a way, these presentations. And now I'm sorry to take enough time for this, but now I'm waiting for questions for your colleagues.
Can I comment, Doctor?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yes, I am Shekhnada Iman.
Okay.
Yes, I am Shekhnada Iman, whose presentation is about Leyliyat Ramada. Yes, actually, you are right, because I haven't written the original title with Arabic. This is really a mistake. Yes, it's about Leyliyat Ramada. So we have asked the question, why it is not Layali and not Leyliyat Ramada? So I answer you the question. It's Leyliyat Ramada instead of Layali Ramada, because Ramada each day writes and tells a story, a different story. And even though Wasim Al-Araj through the Facebook, each night he writes a different story from the perspective of Ramada. As you have said, Ramada is a significant name, because at the end of the novel, Ramada gets mad. So it's as if it is Ramad, okay? So he reflects to the novel that Ramada is at the end Ramad. So this is just another important thing to make things clear for the listeners, that Leyliyat Ramada is initially about the pandemic. It's a story about two lovers and who have a destination and separated because of the pandemic. But beneath it, there is a political message that Wasim Al-Araj delivers through his stories from Ramada, because Ramada, as I have already told you, that she tells different stories. So,
okay, sorry to interrupt you, but here just to tell you something, then I go to the second session, and then it's strangely similar to Alf Layla wa Layla.
this is what I want to say.
Yes.
Because of time, it is tackled and mentioned in my presentation, and because of time, I make things just to make things summarize. Yes, actually, you are totally right, because the story is reflected as if Wasil al-A'raj get the inspiration from that kind of stories from Layla Alf Layla wa Layla. And if we can remember that Shahrazad makes the storytelling one way of the escape. So the same thing with Wasil al-A'raj and his protagonist Ramada make this as an escape from the pandemic and from death. As Shahrazad tells the story to the King Shahrayar to escape from death.
Okay, Miss Ivan, thank you very much for your presentation. Now we go to the second session, the plenary session, session number 2, and we start with Dr. Tifour Habibi from University Center Aflou, Algeria. The paper is in French, La culture populaire est-elle influencée par la pandémie? So the floor is yours. Monsieur Tifour? Monsieur Tifour? So he is absent, I think. Dr. Benjamin, we go to the next?
Maybe. I saw someone raising his hand. I'm not sure if it is this
Is Professor Yusuf Zaghouani Omar. But on the schedule we have Dr. Tifour Habibi in French. Paper in French.
Yes, his mic is not in. He's here. Can you see him on the camera? He's here,
No,
but
no.
he's.
I see a Professor Yusuf Zaghouani Omar and Iman. Iman already.
He went off now. He's going to log in again, I think.
Okay, we go to Onisa, Dr. Onisa Sheikh Ayat Ben Ali from University of Abdullah Mira, Bijaya. The paper is entitled The Fear of the Sick Other in Mohsen Hamid, The Last White Man. So the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. So as you have already mentioned, the title of my presentation is The Fear of the Sick Other in Mohsen Hamid, Last White Man. Just let me try to share the screen, please, with you. Is it shared now? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, it's okay. It's okay now.
Is it shared?
Yes,
can you see the transcript, please?
Can you try to move them?
Okay, thank you very much. So, as I have already said, the title is The Fear of the Sick Other in Mohsen Hamid's The Last White Man, a novel recently published in 2022. So, directly I move to the plan of my intervention. It contains an introduction and the review of literature, the study questions, something about the author and his novel, then some hints about new historicism, then the analysis I entitled Pandemic Context and the Fear of the Sick Other in The Last White Man, Darkness of the Skin as a Metaphor for the Plague. Then I move to the conclusion. So as an introduction, this study explores the general panic that reigned over the people of the fictional setting imagined by Mohsen Hamid's latest novel, The Last White Man. The novel is written in the period of Covid-19 pandemic, and though the reference to the specific virus is implicit throughout the work, the surrounding context is a direct reference to the above-mentioned pandemic's daily terror that overwhelmed the spirits of the imagined town. The study borrows new historicist tools to probe into the roots of racism based on skin color. Plague literature has always existed since it accompanies the life of humans and narrates the advent of strange and communal diseases that had often and are still threatening the life of humans. So plague means blow or a slaughter or smitten. So authors like René Girard and Moore L.G., among others, studied the plague in literary works. They state that plague's destruction is often preceded by a reversal, since it turns the honest into a thief, the virtuous into a lecher, the wealthy into a ruined businessman, while political and social authorities collapse. L.G. Moore contextualizes the role of literature in pandemics to seek a nuanced understanding of literature. So the study questions, to make it brief, of this study are: how is the fact of turning dark becomes an infection, a sickness for white people? What are the hidden realities that become unveiled in times of pandemic and crisis among people? And the third question: what is the impact of living a communal pandemic for humanity? So new historicism, as we see, is a literary theory. And here we try to use some of its tools, just like the anecdotes and merely self-fashioning, to pinpoint the novel's intentions, okay? Then here, I go directly to the analysis before the analysis, I would like to share with you some information about the author of the novel so that you can follow the analysis. So Mohsin Hamid was born on July 23rd, 1971 in Lahore, Pakistan. He lived his early life between Lahore and USA, where his father was a professor. He was conducted by highly qualified author as Toni Morrison. She offered him a chance to develop his writing skills. He was influenced by the most important: Dostoevsky, Kafka, Camus, Frantz Fanon, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He is the author of many novels like Mold Smoke, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, Exit West, and The Last White Man, the novel understudy. The novel narrates the story of a white man named Anders, who suddenly awakens one morning to find himself changed into a dark-skinned person. Anders can find himself and refuse to call anyone except his boss, to whom here we remember Kafka's Metamorphosis, to whom he explains that he is ill, and his white girlfriend Una, to whom he told the truth, but she at first refuses. She was afraid to see him, and also because she becomes confused and afraid of her own white mother, who loathes dark people in general. The events of the story happened in an American unnamed town. Gradually, the towns, just like COVID-19 pandemic people, here it is a metaphor. The townspeople turn dark-skinned, and the outbreak of darkness changes them into violent, enraged, and dangerous people. The novel ends with everyone's being dark-skinned in an overall atmosphere of acceptance and reconciliation. Little bit utopian. So here I entitled the comment as the analysis: pandemic context and the fear of the sick other in The Last White Man, darkness of the skin as a metaphor for the plague. COVID-19 pandemic's atmosphere inspired Hamid in writing his novel at the level of setting, characters, and themes. He refers to the metamorphosis that turns white people into dark-skinned ones as a pandemic. The general setting of the novel renders the same condition encountered by people during COVID-19 outbreak. As the quote demonstrates, the mood in town was changing more rapidly than its complexion. The people of this town, like during COVID-19 outbreak in the real world, take preventive measures to save their lives, since on the one hand, as the people become dark, their violence and aggression double in the street because they cannot accept the change perceived as an infectious sickness. On the other hand, white people were afraid of becoming dark and at the same time afraid of already dark people. In this scary mood, food becomes scarce as they buy huge quantity of it to be stocked inside the houses for confinement, just like what happened during COVID-19. Nothing in the shop. White people who are not yet turned dark are afraid of dark people, while the menace is hovering over them, as this passage testifies. I will just try to read a very short part. Una and her mother avoided going out unless it was absolutely necessary, for the streets were not safe, not even in their part of town, not even for those who looked like them. So, when Anders' girlfriend turns dark, she also goes through the process of, so I have missed a very important one, sorry, I will go back to the slide. The fear of the sick, darkened other becomes intense among white people. This fear creates a climate of civil war in this American unnamed town. Hamid compares becoming dark to a pandemic for the sake of helping people to cope with others' feelings and empathy, it is empathy, of isolation and fear when they are confined and in time of convalescence. This metamorphosis contributes in the self-fashioning of the character's identity, be it white or black people. This concept, as explained by Greenblatt, refers to the process of constructing one's identity and public persona to reflect a set of cultural standards or social codes. Anders lost his bygone white self-fashioning and goes through another process of reconstructing his dark identity and public character within a set of new cultural standards, social codes set for dark people in America. So white people who lose their whiteness and become dark start to become interested in the way dark people they used to see before without any attention live, feel, and think. In a way, it is a kind of recognition for their new selves and for the second zone citizen. When Anders' girlfriend turns dark, she also goes through the process of relearning. For her, this metamorphosis is lived positively, as this passage may show. She was escaping a prison. She desired to escape because she actually hates her white self. For her, life had become fraught and for so long. So here she becomes a kind of delivered from the confinement of the past and unfettered again to grow. There is a growing. Then Una's mother lives this is the most racist white character. So she lives this change as a tragedy, not only for her, but for the entire white race. She is in a way proud of being the last white woman to turn dark, ironically, in the town. As an anecdote that provides a touch of the real, as Greenblatt would say, she often thinks that dark people are savage, criminals. Una's mother read of the savagery of the dark people, how it had been in them from the beginning and had manifested itself again and again throughout history and could not be denied. And she read the example of one group of whites had fallen and the rapes and the slaughters and tortures we had been subjected to, and how that was the way of dark people. This passage refers to the white racist discourse used to denigrate Black people to justify whites' ill treatment of them in the American society. She thinks that it is the end of the superior white race to be brought about by dark-skinned persons. Her discourse recalls, in a way, white women's assault on the Black community. I don't know if you have read James Baldwin play Close for Mr. Charlie. This study, as a conclusion, I conclude, this study addressed the issue of human fear of the different, sick, other, through Hamid's representation of white men's loss of their whiteness to become dark-skinned people. From the above analysis, we can assume that Hamid's novel uses the plague as a metaphor for racism to enmesh the white self in a process of self-refashioning and relearning the self and the other in the American new cultural code dictated by the plague's new condition. Using the plague as a communal event, the author engaged the dialogue that, though ferocious at the beginning, becomes intergenerational, mother, grandmother, and the granddaughter, and interracial, white-black, to find the threshold for curing the ills of racism through reconciliation and accepting the other's differences. The novel, with the imagined infection, enacts a process of healing in an imagined optimistic end where the white people end up accepting their new dark-skinned selves and life becomes gradually normal for the citizens of the American town. Pertaining to Plague literature, Mohsin Hamid's novel contributes in creating hope in the continuity of humanity through acceptance and tolerance by presenting the ex-white grandmother as a storyteller for her dark granddaughter, which is in a way a token of recognition and felicity for humanity after the plague. Thank you, Thank you for your attention, and I wait your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Unisa Sheikh Ben Ali. Now let us come back to Dr. Tifour Habibi. He is now online. Il va nous présenter, il est du centre universitaire d'Aflou, Algérie. Il va nous présenter une intervention intitulée « La culture populaire est-elle influencée par la pandémie ?» Vous avez le micro.
Merci, monsieur, et bonjour à tout le monde. Est-ce que vous nous entendez, monsieur?
Oui, oui, on vous entend.
Merci, merci, madame. Donc, mon intervention s'intitule « La culture populaire est-elle influencée par la pandémie ?» c'est-à-dire la Covid-19. J'ai choisi cet axe que je l'ai traduit en français, l'impact de la pandémie sur la culture populaire. Donc, ma communication s'inscrit dans le cadre de l'étude de l'écriture sur la littérature de la peste et la peur du Covid-19. Il s'agirait de présenter littérairement l'impact de la pandémie en général et la peste en particulier sur la culture populaire mondiale et je me focalise sur la culture populaire algérienne durant cette période de la pandémie. Dans cette perspective, je vais évoquer la question de la pandémie qui a certainement eu un impact significatif sur l'industrie du divertissement et de la culture populaire en raison des mesures de distanciation sociale et d'autres restrictions imposées pour ralentir la propagation du virus. Donc, mon intervention comprend 5 points essentiels, bien 5 étapes. La première, c'est comment la pandémie a accéléré et renforcé les changements dans les secteurs culturels. La pandémie a accentué les défis auxquels le monde culturel est confronté. Elle a ainsi mis en évidence la nécessité d'une étroite collaboration entre les autorités des différents niveaux institutionnels et d'un renforcement du dialogue avec les acteurs du secteur culturel. Elle a aussi mis en lumière la situation précaire dans laquelle se trouvent les acteurs culturels, notamment les indépendants qui travaillent souvent dans des conditions atypiques. Sa situation a été particulièrement, c'est-à-dire la situation de la culture populaire durant cette période de pandémie, a été particulièrement sérieuse dans le secteur musical, suivi par ceux des arts de la scène et des arts visuels. Donc, en pleine pandémie, je prends ici un exemple d'une nouvelle édition connue par la statistique de poche de la culture en Suisse. C'était dans les 2 années 2020 et 2021, où l'Office fédéral de la culture, ce qui est connu par l'OFC, vient de publier cette statistique de poche de la culture en Suisse. Et elle a notamment un aperçu des mesures de soutien prises par la Confédération en faveur du secteur de la culture entre mars de l'année 2020 et le dernier mois, le mois de décembre 2021. Donc, le deuxième point, c'est l'impact de la pandémie sur la culture populaire mondiale. Donc, cette pandémie a influé le monde en entier, y compris bien sûr l'Algérie. Donc, je commence par les domaines qui ont été influencés. Je cite 6 à titre indicatif. Le premier, c'est l'annulation ou le report d'événements culturels, donc de nombreux festivals, de tournage de films et autres événements culturels ont été annulés ou reportés en raison des restrictions liées à la pandémie. Cela a entraîné une diminution significative des nouvelles sorties de films, de la tenue en direct et de l'accès aux expositions artistiques. Le deuxième domaine, c'est la consommation de médias en ligne, avec les mesures de distanciation sociale qui était une obligation et les confinements, les gens se sont tournés vers les médias en ligne pour se divertir. C'est-à-dire, tout le monde n'avait bien été obligé de choisir les médias et d'avoir une grande consommation de médias, de s'installer devant les différents médias pour faire des échanges ou bien pour se divertir. Les plateformes de streaming ont connu une augmentation sans précédent de leur audience, les gens consommant davantage de films, de séries télévisées, de musique et de jeux vidéo. C'est-à-dire le confinement a, si vous voulez, entre guillemets, a emprisonné l'individu en général de rester chez lui et de regarder beaucoup de films, beaucoup de séries télévisées, d'écouter beaucoup de musique, de jouer avec des jeux de vidéo pour, bien sûr, gagner, pour tuer le temps ou bien pour passer le temps. Troisième domaine, c'est l'émergence de nouvelles formes de divertissement en ligne. La pandémie a également donné naissance à de nouvelles formes de divertissement en ligne, les représentations théâtrales en direct, les expositions d'art virtuelles, les visites guidées en ligne et d'autres expériences virtuelles ont été proposées pour permettre aux gens de profiter de la culture tout en respectant les mesures de distanciation sociale. Le quatrième, c'est l'influence sur les tendances culturelles, ou bien la pandémie a également influencé les tendances culturelles mondiales, des thèmes liés à la santé, à la quarantaine, à l'isolement, à la solidarité et à la résilience sont devenus des sujets récurrents dans de nouvelles créations culturelles. Les artistes ont également utilisé leur art pour aborder des questions sociales liées à la pandémie, telles que les inégalités, l'impact sur les travailleurs de première ligne et des problèmes de santé mentale. Le cinquième domaine, c'est l'impact sur l'industrie du cinéma et de la musique. L'industrie du cinéma et de la musique a été ou bien fortement touchée par la pandémie. Les salles de cinéma ont été fermées et de nombreux studios ont choisi de reporter la sortie de leurs films. De plus, les tournages ont été interrompus en raison de restrictions de voyage et des mesures de sécurité. Dans l'industrie musicale, de nombreuses tournées ont été annulées et les artistes se sont adaptés en organisant des concerts en stream.
Vous pouvez essayer d'abréger et aller vers la conclusion, parce que
oui.
vous n'avez que 10 minutes. Voilà.
Oui, je sais. Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Donc, je cite le dernier. C'est le dernier domaine, c'est le changement dans la façon dont on consomme la culture. C'est la consommation toujours. Et je passe maintenant à l'impact de la pandémie sur la culture populaire algérienne. Donc, c'est presque les mêmes domaines, hein, les 6, sauf ici, j'ai une distinction qui se figure dans le troisième domaine où il y avait la valorisation de la musique et des chants traditionnels. C'est-à-dire en Algérie, les citoyens algériens, durant cette pandémie, il y avait une redécouverte et une valorisation de la musique et des chants traditionnels algériens qui ont été partagés en ligne par de nombreux artistes et musiciens. Ces expressions culturelles ont servi à rassembler les Algériens dans un moment difficile. Ils sont revenus à l'écoute des chants et de la musique traditionnelle. Pour le reste des 5 domaines, ce sont les mêmes domaines que la culture populaire mondiale. Donc, à la fin, comme conclusion, dans l'ensemble, la pandémie a bouleversé la culture populaire mondiale, mais elle a également ouvert de nouvelles opportunités créatives et a permis l'émergence de nouvelles formes de divertissement en ligne. Les effets à long terme de la pandémie sur la culture populaire restent encore incertains, mais il est clair que l'industrie culturelle et créative s'adapte et se réinvente pour faire face à cette crise malgré les défis posés par la pandémie. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup pour cette intervention. Et sans tarder, on va à notre communicant, another participant whose name is Asma Belazouz. So, are you here?
Yes.
Are you online?
Morning.
So, the
Yes.
floor is yours. No more
Thank
than
you.
10 minutes.
Certainly.
Okay. We are expecting your PGT to be shared, okay?
Yes, I'm sharing it right now.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. I don't know if I think my screen is shared.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, no, it's okay. Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Esma Belazouz. I'm from the University of Algiers too, and my presentation is entitled The Aesthetics of Play in Interactive Plague Narratives. I'd like to first thank you for the opportunity that confirms every day that if COVID has one benefit, it is to show us how we can all gather in digitalized fluid spaces with no geographical boundaries. And fortunately, narratives can also be experienced similarly. So this shift into the digital space of video gaming has been rapidly evolving in the last century, just like my colleague who just presented explained how important the consumption of video games has evolved in the last few years due to COVID. And it is unprecedented. The numbers are increasing day after day. And this is what motivated me to explore plague narratives in their interactive nature. So this study focuses on the analysis of a plague tale innocence, as you can see the title of the game here, as a plague narrative, and explores the reasons behind our engagement with such narratives in video games. So by examining the game's elements, we are able to see through the MDA approach how meaningful experiences that players engage with help us derive meanings, especially from this specific narrative, plague narrative. So two words are put together to shift the focus from narratives as we experience them in their literary forms to experiencing them inactively or through the medium of video games. The two words are aesthetics, play. So while aesthetics can be defined as any other form of art in its Aristotelian sense that is undergoing catharsis by having emotions of pity and fear for an experienced piece of art, play is understood as the experience itself that is a voluntary activity with certain fixed limits of time and place. Human beings are playful by nature. Play has always been an interactive activity, and it has evolved throughout time and ages and survived all technological advancements. And in fact, it is what inspires now different areas that are now including ludic and interactive gamification experiences to let's say, improve any of those areas. In Homo Ludens, or man, the player, Johann Huizinga and later on Brian Upton in his Aesthetics of Play identified the activity of play that involves the four fundamental elements, which are movement, freedom, rules, and boundaries. And they say that play is a process that allows individuals to enter a magic circle that has its own freedom. So it's a free movement within boundaries governed by a set of rules, its interactive nature engages players in an immersive experience with a participatory culture. We can refer to Henry Jenkins here, that is unknown to other mediums, and the medium of video games transcends its medium nature and becomes an art form of the next century, just like Eric Zimmerman identified that in his paper, in which explains that this century is a ludic one. So how does this art form present pandemic narratives? Playing games is known to be a process of discovery, self-discovery sometimes. So the activity of play gives us multiple ways into understanding the world. The plurality of this understanding is also unified by game mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics that render the narratives interactive and participatory. And the intersection of the three primary layers in any game design communicate meaning. So the MDA approach, the one I'm using for this paper, which stands for mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, is a formal approach in game design and game research that presents us with a framework to view games as, more importantly, like artifacts than media, and it helps frame the gameplay system as a behavior understood via an interaction with a narrative. So mechanics are systems that make the game function. They are all about rules and whatever governs the fundamental level of the game. Dynamics are the strategies with which a game is played, and they also explain to us the experience during the gameplay. And aesthetics involves the narrative of the game and the way it is intertwined with system and strategies of the gameplay, and also involves the responses and experiences of the player's perception of the game or what the game evokes. So this paper focuses on the narrative by evoking or by looking at how it is represented through aesthetics of the game. The perspective will be shifted towards the player and not the designer, and this is why the paper focuses on aesthetics and not mechanics or dynamics. So when describing the aesthetics of a game, non-specific vocabulary always involves the word fun. Why do we play? To have fun. Now, the MDA approach has provided a taxonomy that includes, but is not limited to, the 8 words you can see here: sensation, fantasy, narrative, challenge, fellowship, discovery, expression, submission, which become now not just words, but components that create play experience and allow us to ask and attempt to answer the following questions. So why do we play plague narratives, and how does play in plague narratives express meaning? The game A Plague Tale: Innocence, which is a sequel to Plague Tale Requiem, is a video game released on multiple platforms in May 2019. Surprisingly, it came out just a few months before the breakdown of COVID, so it came at the perfect time for people to be engaged in a pandemic game. It is set in 14th century France during the time of Black Death, and the game follows the story of Amicia and her brother, younger brother Hugo, who are forced to escape their home and navigate a harsh, dangerous world ravaged by 2 plagues. The first one, I think it is a symbolic plague, which is the Inquisition Wars, and the second one is what we understand as Black Death Plague, with rats invading the entire country. So the siblings must overcome various challenges, including avoiding the Inquisition, solving puzzles, and navigating treacherous environments, and that involve a lot of gruesome and death-haunting activities. So players progress in the game, acquiring along the way an aesthetic knowledge that plays a crucial role in enhancing the player's experience, fostering emotional engagement, personal connection, and a sense of agency within the game world. So the 8 identified components of the aesthetic knowledge will be summed up in just 3 because of time requirements. So I'm going to focus on sensation, narrative, and fellowship. So the first point on sensation refers to the sensory elements of a game, such as visuals, sounds, music, and other sensory stimuli that contributes to the overall player experience and immersion. So the game utilizes immersive visuals and sound designs to create a sense of realism and tension. Players experience the sights and sounds of a plague-ridden world with detailed environments and atmospheric effects. As you can see in this speed up video so that you can have more ideas or at least an overview of this first opening scene of the game, the sensation of this game fulfills a need to understand the dangers of a spread of a pandemic by making players experience the cathartic effect of its consequences. So the mood of the game is set from as early as the opening scene, which you are right now viewing. It shifts from a vivid scenery in which Amicia and her father were having a vivid and warm dialogue about their most happy memories and their aspirations for a better future, their hopes, their desires, their Amicia's plans for the future, and so on. So the color palette, as you may notice as well at the beginning, is vivid and cheerful, and you cannot hear, but the sound also is cheerful in the background. The first scene moves then gradually into a gruesome and death-haunted atmosphere. Everything around Amicia turns dark, heavy, and infected, with also tension building as the mystery that surrounds what she finds. Yes, what she finds takes her dog as well. So fear and pain, so you can see darkness right now. Fear and pain, frustration, and catharsis are experienced from the beginning of the game. The next component is narrative. So narrative is related to both aesthetics and dynamics because they are intertwined and it cannot be separated. And they are what influences the game experience in general. In this game, the narrative focus is on the journey of Amicia and her brother, and the gameplay unfolds the story of survival. So the narrative also creates dramatic tension and builds towards the climax. And in this scene in chapter 2 of the game, Hugo makes noises and is heard, and they unfortunately are discovered by a mob in this village. And Amicia has to kill a man and then another, the leader of the mob, in order to save her brother and continue her journey. And also Hugo then agrees to obey his sister and stop, or at least do not harm their journey. Okay, so the third one, fellowship, is related to also aesthetics of dynamics, and it specifically speaks about how cooperation, interaction is pertained as a social component of the game. Community building also is important in this part, and the fellowship here summarizes or emphasizes the connection we have with other players in terms of collaboration, or what we also call vicarious experiences if we look into theories such as self-efficacy. So while fellowship is not primary in the game, but this is what connects this game to the COVID-19, and I'll summarize with this point. I'll conclude with it. So Amicia is protective of her brother and is always trying to make the bond stronger between them, and throughout the game and throughout the evolution of the game, she is reconnecting with him and he's reconnecting with her, because they were not having that bound as before their journey. Similarly, during COVID-19 lockdown, we connected with our family as we were all locked within the same spaces. We had time to explore our bonds, navigate our ways together throughout the day, survive any hardship due to any living conditions or circumstances, and we might have endured those times. So to conclude, this research shed light on ways in which games effectively express themes and convey emotions of plague narratives through compelling immersive storytelling experiences and interactive ones as well. They inform us about complex catastrophes and their implications. The findings here contribute to the understanding of the broader significance of plague narratives, and they also add to the aesthetic knowledge of the overall enjoyment and meaning of the game. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And now we go to the last presentation of Dr. Sadia Wildiru from University of Mascara, Algeria. The title of her presentation is Pandemic and Resilience Between Past and Present, a comparative analysis of outbreak, contagion, and love in a pandemic. So the floor is yours, if you are here.
Yeah, good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good morning, and thank you so much for this golden opportunity. I will first try to share the PowerPoint.
It's okay.
Okay, great then. Well, as the first slide of the presentation displays, my presentation is entitled Pandemic and Resilience Between Past and the Present, a comparative study of 3 different movies: Outbreak 1995, Contagion 2011, and Loving Pandemic 2023. Every deadly pandemic involves, as we know, and that triggers resilience, and so did all the diseases inflicted upon humanity throughout history. I have chosen 3 different movies from 3 different periods. The first movie is Outbreak, which was released in 1995 and directed by Wolfgang Petersen. And the second movie is Contagion. It was released in 2011. And the third movie is entitled Love in a Pandemic, and it was directed by Kay Ilzobi. In this presentation, I try to examine the films and shed light on the portrayal of the pandemics and the human responses to crisis and the resilience demonstrated in the face of the challenges that the pandemic requires. Besides, the presentation seeks to understand how people's reaction altered or when compelled to cope with fear, anxiety, and death looming around. Well, when it comes to the first movie, Outbreak, the movie explores the outbreak of a deadly fictional virus called Matoba in a small town in California. And the movie follows the efforts of a team of scientists, military personnel, and medical experts as they race against time to contain the virus and prevent a global pandemic. The story revolves around Colonel Sam Daniel, who is a virologist from the US Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, and his ex-wife. They are researchers, and once the outbreak or the virus spread, they joined forces to identify the source of the virus, and they try to find a cure and contain its spread. The movie, in fact, highlights the challenges faced by the medical team, including the government, and the struggle to balance public safety with the rights of the infected. The film
we are still with the first slide. They do not move.
Really?
Yes, we are with the first slide. The title only. Okay, now it's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
This was supposed to be the second slide, and this is the slide concerning the first movie. While analyzing or watching the movie, when it comes to the humans' responses to crisis and the impact of the pandemic in the movie highlights these 4 elements. Well, the movie displays, first of all, the devastating consequences of a highly contagious virus. It depicted the efforts of scientists and medical professionals in understanding and trying to find a cure to the disease. The movie also highlighted the importance of having public health measures and quarantine protocols. It also shed light on the challenges faced by health organizations and in a pandemic period, and preventing it from becoming the efforts they made in order to prevent the virus from becoming a global catastrophe. When it comes to the individual's reaction, the movie highlighted some elements. First of all, the initial skepticism to the virus, that it may not be natural, it may be man-made, and it also showed the subsequent urgency and mobilization of resources as the situation worsened. It also displayed the dedication and determination of scientists, doctors, and other frontline workers who risk their lives to find the cure and save lives. The movie also depicted instances of panic, fear, and the ethical dilemma mainly faced by individuals and institutions during the crisis. The movie Outbreak highlighted the resilience by both individuals and communities in the face of the challenges. It showed the characters who remained committed to their duties, preserved in their search for cure, and worked together to contain the outbreak. And it emphasized the importance of resilience and the human capacity to overcome the situation if they just work together. The second movie, which is entitled The Contagions. This movie was released in 2011. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh. It depicts the same thing, the rapid spread of the deadly virus, but this time the virus wasn't fictional. And the film offers a realistic portrayal of a pandemic outbreak, and it follows various interconnected storylines that explore the societal, scientific, and personal implications of such a crisis. When it comes to the elements described or depicted by the movie, same thing, the movie described the rapid spread of the disease. It also describes the efforts made by the scientists in order to overcome the situation. And an extra element that was treated by this movie is the race against time to develop a vaccine. And it also depicted the global impact of the pandemic. When it comes to the people's reaction, same thing, the individuals, it depicted the psychological effect or impact of the pandemic, the initial confusion and denial, because people at the beginning, they didn't believe that the virus may be natural, same thing like the first movie. Then the gradual realization of the severity of the pandemic and the efforts of the organization and healthcare. It also depicted the social unrest that any pandemic can create in a society, and it shed light more on the paranoia and fear and the breakdown of social norms that a pandemic can create a kind of ethical issues within people. For the last and the third movie, which is entitled Love in a Pandemic, this movie is a kind of a romantic movie, the emergence of a love story in the mid of the COVID-19. But what I noticed in the movie is that it had focused more on the fear created by the pandemic, fear of death, fear of the spread of the pandemic, and the fear of being lonely. Because in the movie, the character who was supposed to stay at home alone for a long period of time, and she had a boyfriend, and he left her. When she tried to call him, she dialed the wrong number, and she found herself talking with someone else. All these things, they depicted the degree of loneliness she was feeling, and this is the main theme that was depicted by this movie.
Doctor, only 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm about to finish. Well, all in all, despite the fact that the three movies were set in different periods, they tackle different types of viruses, but we can notice that all the three movies emphasize that any pandemic in the world can create kind of paranoia, kind of fear, kind of loneliness, the importance of healthcare, the importance of unity to overcome the pandemic crisis, and mainly they have shed light on the ethical issues that any pandemic can create. That's all for the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now the questions are open. So, and the participants are waiting for your questions and feedback. Okay, if there's no question, so I have a question for Dr. Unisa Sheikh from University of Bijaya. She has spoken about persona and identity. A very direct question. Is identity conscious? Is identity construction a conscious act? And because, as you know, identity, we have, it means ida means the same, but we have id plus entity. Id is very personal, is psychological, whereas entity is the sum of the external components that, from the environment that make of you an Algerian or in a way, you identify yourself to geography. So entity is the external component, whereas the id is the internal, and both form identity. And so you said in your presentation, construction of identity. How can we construct it? Since we have the psychological side, in a way, which is in a way within us, a world within, not a world without. In other words, are we conscious when we construct one's identity? And thank you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you, Dr. Borgby, for your question. It is very interesting. So I think that you have started to answer right at the beginning. It is an inner and an outer one. Okay, it is the id, it is inner. So when I speak, so when I relate identity construction to Mohsin Hamid, so here it is already constructed, unfortunately. But what make it a kind of rethinking? It is a process in a way, reconstructed. So mainly after the 9/11 events, because Mohsin Hamid is a Muslim, American Muslim, things started to change in America. So here he had in fact used the metaphor of the plague, the metaphor of a contagion, to push or to enact a kind of a dialogue between the id, which is the outer, and the entity, which is the outside part of the American consciousness and personality. So it is in the moment of crisis that we are in fact pushed to relearn, to unlearn and relearn, to construct, deconstruct, and construct our own thoughts and thinking. So it is through this fictional, imaginative, unnamed town that he wanted to expose all the discourses of the self, because the self, in fact, is not only one, because here it is components of many materials. So here he is in fact being educated by, for example, there is a kind of hybridity or more than two-ness inside one personality. It is not only hybrid, because here it is at first inside the family, and then it is outside, inside society. So here it is this moment of crisis, which is also the beautiful metaphor of plague, that is going to contribute on the reconstruction, self-fashioning of this identity for the sake of perpetuating and for the sake of living among others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are expecting some questions. No question?
Please, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so my question is addressed to Dr. Asma Belazzouz.
Who are you? Unisa, are you Unisa?
Yes, I'm Unisa.
Yes, okay, yes, okay.
I would like to ask a question to Dr. Asma Belazzouz.
Okay, Asma Belazzouz.
Yes,
So,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, it's okay.
All right, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. It is very interesting, but there is an issue. You know that we suffered too much of video games, and we are still suffering because here we are in holidays, and the children are in fact becoming blind with the screen. So is video games a good way for teaching our children? And do you think that they are interactive because they are unidirectional in a way? What is the experience they acquire apart from being games addict? Because I would prefer if there is, for example, beforehand a historical view, because for example the plague tale is a historical fact, but we don't have any historical point of view about the events that happened in Europe. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, let me first ask you, what kind of games do the children you are talking about play?
Yes, they play all this, for example, the theft, the zombie, and all the kinds of video games that are available on the markets. And there is a very important thing, is that there is no laws, for example, forbidding these games for our children in Algeria. This is
All right, excuse me for this question, but I had to ask it because people overgeneralize video gaming, and the video gaming I spoke of, maybe for lack of time, I did not give you context, but it's adventure video games, and video games have this discussion of video games being maybe having only negative outcomes or implications is a discussion scholars have stopped having in the last 10 years or so, because now we kind of only speak about the psychological implications on the well-being of children. Now, the choice of video games is up to, let's say, maybe the parents at some point to select, and then up to the children themselves to select once they become teenagers and they know what to play. Now, adventure games are the ones I usually study, and I study those games for their interesting implications. And one of the games that I don't know if your children or the children you spoke of play are Nintendo Zelda games, for example. So I recommend you ask children to stop playing Battle Royale, zombie games, and start playing adventure games with no action in them. So there's a variety, just like the different genres in literature and films. There are also genres in games that I also recommend you read Rachel Coward's research on the implications of well-being on video games.
Okay, thank you very much for all. Now we come to the third plenary session, and I start with Professor Françoise Besson de l'Université de Toulouse, Jean Jaurès, France, qui va nous présenter, who is about to present for us a paper entitled Literature Against Fear. So, Professor, the floor is yours. I think she is here. Professor Besson.
She was here and now she's, no, she's still here.
She's here, I see, yes. FB, yes, on the, yes, she's here. Françoise Besson, Professor Françoise Besson.
Yes, sorry, I'm sorry because my connection is as thick as the weather
so
here in Toulouse.
The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank all the organizers, and particularly Dr. Khaula Benjamil and all the participants for their great presentations. Well, can literature be an answer to fear, and can it give readers the necessary tools to face both plagues and benumbing fear? By showing the connections between human and non-human bodies and the body of nature, writers suggest that the response to fear of plague can be found, neither in fear nor in a kind
You hear her?
I think of internet, no voice.
And she said that the weather is not good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thought the internet is not good only in Algeria. Yeah, because of the weather, she said that
Okay, so what shall we do? We wait for a while, we wait for her? Yes.
Or we go to next presentation, and so that
Okay,
prepares
okay.
ourselves.
Okay, so we are very sorry for Professor Besson. Probably we will come back to her for next. So we go to Mr. Isa Ben Nairat and Mr. Siddiq Ben Ali from the University of Shlef, who are about to to present for us a paper entitled "Until the Last Breath: Surviving the Post-Apocalypse in Literature."
I think she's back.
Yes, Professor Françoise.
Yes.
Is she
Okay.
here?
Yes, I have reappeared. Sorry.
So go ahead, Professor.
I can go ahead. Thank you. Well, so I was saying that literature does not avoid the topic of fear, and on the contrary, uses it to create suspense or to bring about awareness. Fear created in real life by various powers is often propaganda, and it is meant to let people think according to what powers, political, industrial, or other powers want to obtain. They use real fear to blind people, whereas literature uses imaginary fear to open people's eyes. French novelist Albert Camus' novel, The Plague, speaks about a disease, even if it is also a political allegory denouncing any totalitarianism. And I agree with what David Corman said yesterday. It is not only a political allegory, but it is also that. And it is also a philosophical novel, as Scott Slovic said. It starts with something presented as a hard reality, the infection of rats first, and then of humans through a rapid spreading of the contamination. At the end of the novel, even if the city enjoys the end of the plague, the text reminds the reader that any plague, political or health crisis, is never definitively destroyed. The novel insists on the absence of living nature, birds, trees, and gardens, which appears as a warning. A dead rat is the first sign of the plague. Camus' novel is dark, but the fear generated by a depiction of the plague is made to allow readers to detect dangers. The literary distance changes fear into questions, and the text becomes a sort of shield. We know that what we read is imaginary. We also see some connections with real facts. This allows us to be more attentive to the dangers threatening our world and ourselves. An American detective novel by Tony Hillman evoked a contamination due to the pollution of drinking water by a coal company. The first eagle is located in an area that was affected by various kinds of pollution, provoking several diseases. The Black Mesa coal mine, situated within the Navajo and Hopi reservations, used water from the Black Mesa and aquifer, which was the only drinking source for the Navajo and Hopi populations. Articles and reports mentioned the mortal diseases due to the pollution by nitrogen oxides and other chemicals. In the novel, the characters reminds readers that uranium mining in the Navajo reservation from the 1940s to the 1960s many cancers and impacts on the population nowadays. The connection between cancers and the exploitation of uranium, between plague and the pollution of the environment, had not always been revealed by the political power nor by the industrial companies. Scientists' research, journalists' inquiries, and literary works have changed the data and, together, reveal the truth about contamination. When novelists deal with a topic concerning such tragic reality, and when fear is at the core of their novels, it is not to frighten people in real life and benumb them, but on the contrary to inform them so that they could be more attentive. In fact, when literature uses fear, it is to fight fear. It prevents people from keeping their eyes closed and opens them onto dangerous realities, sometimes hidden from them. So doing it gives them the tools to face these realities. Often in moments of pandemics, in every kind of serious crisis, in fact, media speak in one voice, relaying the voice of power. They frighten people, sometimes with good intentions to save them, but without letting them have their own point of view. They organize fear in such a way that it obliterates anything else. Poets and novelists do the reversal. They show reasons of fear, but they also show the origins and possible solutions. Literature lets people have their own point of view. The absence of natural life in Oran at the beginning of Camus' novel, the sense of desolation in Hillman's text, can make readers think about the relationship between plague and the absence of nature. Some scientists, like virologist Raina Plowright and others, have demonstrated that, for example, deforestation made the spreading of viruses easier. Fear is at the core of thrillers, and especially of a children's novel, The Last Wild, considered as an ecological thriller. In this novel, a young mute boy is in a hospital, imprisoned, and he is helped by animals who want him to save other animals from a virus. He alone can speak to them, whereas he can't speak to humans. Pierre Torday's novel speaks about solidarity between species in a half fantastic, half marvelous story, but this story reflects the reality of the Earth and species threatened by human actions. The children's book mirrors Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, starting like a fable. The first chapter is a fable for tomorrow, and showing the world the terrible reality of men destroying and silencing nature. For Pierre Torday, The Last Wild was, quote, an attempt to make sense of how we are changing our environment and the natural world around us, end of quote. And if the novel mingles several genres, fantasy, fairy tale, dystopia, poetry, and it clearly appears as an ecological tale, warning young and less young readers about the dangers threatening many animal species and humans because of human behavior. The deadly virus is killing all animals. People think all are dead, except those considered as pests, and it's expected to spread to humans. Torday said about the writing of his novel, one of the reasons writing The Last around us was if the tale is often dark of this
Okay, what shall we do, Doctor?
Sorry, I was just going to conclude. May I conclude?
Yes,
or?
yes, go to conclusion. Yes, yes, yes.
Sorry. Well, so by mingling science fiction, tales, suspense, and elements of reality, Pierre Torday leads young readers in a worrying and beautiful adventure where they must be aware that the smallest and most rejected animal, like the cockroach, saving them, can help men to save the earth, which meets some Native American creation myth in which it is often a very small animal that allows the creation of the world. So either Albert Camus with his philosophical allegory taking place in Oran, Tony Hillman with his detective novels taking place in Navajo and Hopi reservations in the US, or Pierre Torday's children's novel staging animals in the forest who save the world from a criminal contamination, all these novelists offer readers different visions of plagues and poetic solutions. The fact that they are poetic and imaginary instead of making them impossible opens readers' eyes on the fact that there are solutions in solidarity and in the awareness of all the connections between human lives and the non-human world. So to conclude this conclusion, I will end with a sentence by Virginie Heffernan, which was quoted in the call for paper of this conference. She wrote, "In plague years or not, we need less propaganda and more poetry." Thank you, and sorry for all the disconnections.
Thanks a lot for your presentation, and probably you expect you will have some questions to answer, probably from the audience. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay. Now
thank you for your patience.
Okay. Now we go to Mr. Aisa Benirad and Mr. Siddiq Ben Ali from University of Shlif. The title of their paper is "Until the Last Breath: Surviving the Post Apocalypse in Literature." So the floor is yours. Siddiq Ben Ali, I've seen him somewhere. Siddiq Ben Ali.
Yes,
hello.
he is sharing his screen.
Okay. Yes.
Hello, good morning.
Okay. Is okay. You shared, everything is okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Just okay. Is it? So, good morning, everyone. Dear committees, both scientific and organizing. Thank you so much for this scientific event that gathered many brilliant presentations to develop and enrich this conference topic, plague, literature, pandemic writing, and COVID-19 fear. And a special thanks to Dr. Benjamin for her efforts to make this conference a success, and a successful one it is. So this work, our work is entitled Until the Last Breath, Surviving the Post-Apocalypse in Literature, analyzing one of the contemporary American literary masterpieces, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. As it is shown in our cover page, the whole work is done by Mr. Bembeli and Mr. Benerd, and presented by Mr. Bembeli. In order to have a well-structured work, we divided it as follows. So first of all, we start with introduction, moving to statement of the problem, then the purpose of the study, research questions, significance of the study, methodology, discussion, conclusion, and finally with references that we relied on. So as an introduction, post-apocalyptic fiction is a genre that has seen a growth in interest in recent years, especially among young adults. The main appeal of the books is not only the physical action, dramatic scenes, and the world ending, but also the psychological challenges facing the survivors, the terror of surviving, the desperate struggle to keep living and pushing on despite circumstances. As a statement of the problem, this work deals with the theme of survival, the post-apocalypse in Cormac McCarthy's novel, The Road. As a purpose of the study, picturizing a post-apocalyptic American society and how characters are surviving in the novel of Cormac McCarthy, The Road. As a question of our research, how is survival portrayed in the novel? Why our study is significant? It is an interesting task to go through a study with a winning Pulitzer Prize in fiction in 2007, Cormac McCarthy's novel, The Road, which was published in 2006. The novel is considered as one of the best novels in the 21st century, and it deals with an important issue that was widely discussed in post-apocalyptic literature. For that, this study is conducted to see the extent that McCarthy had been unique in his portrayal of the American society. The method adopted in the study is descriptive analytic to picturize the theme of survival in Cormac McCarthy's novel, The Road. In our discussion, we are going through 5 elements. So, first of all, we have some terms in order to be defined. Number 1, which is literature. So, what's literature? Literature is seen as a mirror to society since it reflects the current societal realities. Literature's corrective goal is to reflect on humanity's issues so that every society can see and fix its insufficiencies. As a reflection of human behavior, literature typically represents the people, what people believe, say, and do in any social context. Next term is dystopian literature. What's dystopian literature? Dystopian literature is when any society whose citizens experience oppression, such as racism, classism, sexism, or distress, like poverty, for example, from their governments, such as the works of the Hunger Games and Fahrenheit 451. Another term, which is the apocalyptic literature. The apocalyptic literature is when the disaster and the catastrophe occur during the course of the story, such as the work or the movie of World War Z. Also, the post-apocalyptic literature is when the event has already happened. For example, the works of I'm a Legend and The Road. Moving to another term, which is survival. What do we mean by survival? Survival is a state or the fact of continuing to live or exists, typically in spite of an accident or difficult circumstances. Moving to a different element, which is what makes a post-apocalyptic survival literature. Survival stories are characterized with that characters face challenges and obstacles of survival. For example, animals, oppressive systems, nuclear disasters, or even to fight back against any kind of being killed. Now we move to give some insights about McCarthy's his life, Cormac McCarthy, named originally Charles, was born in Rhode Island in 1933. He spent a year in the University of Tennessee. His major was liberal arts. Throughout his career, he insisted on his need for privacy, avoided public appearances, and remained deeply absorbed in the work of writing. Now we move to give an overview about the novel. The Road, published in 2006, depicts a journey of a father and his son as they make their way to the south, seeking a warmer climate. The journey takes place in a post-apocalyptic wasteland after unknown catastrophe occurred and left no sign of life. The father decides to depart in order to survive the disaster. On the journey, the father and the son across lands full of ashes and devoid of flora and fauna, with few supplies of survival. Eventually, they reach the south, precisely the sea, which is grim, colorless, and lifeless. At the end, the father dies, leaving his son who meets the family that convinces him that they are the good guys who will protect him. Now we move to conceptualizing the survival and its strategies in the novel. So throughout the fictional events of the novel, McCarthy sheds light on a world after a disaster has taken place. The nature of catastrophe is never mentioned in the novel, so it can be a divine end or an end related to human actions. Inside the road, the novel, the survivors of this disaster are always in state of looking for food and shelter to sustain their primary urgent needs, and also searching for meaning to their existence. In the process of searching, each of these characters develops survival strategies. The unnamed men, the son, the good guys, in their search for a better life conditions, go through physical and psychological struggles. The physical obstacles are the environmental changes and the human cannibalism. In addition to psychological barriers are related to the man's passion to survive. Among the strategies of survival mentioned in the novel, we start with morality, struggle, and survival. This is when the father sticks in his morals, not becoming accountable in a world of meaningless violence, greed, and evenness. Also, the role of religion and maintaining survival. It was shown and embodied in the father's questioning the existence of God. Moving to another strategy, which is parental love. And this one was shown with the father's love towards his child is fueled by his central role as protector, instructor, and life support provider. Another one, which is the mother's conception of survival. The mother's psychological and physical exhaustion due to the tremendous efforts she made to survive a post-apocalyptic war reality. The mother killed herself to ameliorate her son's and husband's means of survival. Another one, and the last one, which is fire. Fire can be interpreted in many ways. Fire can be hope. The fire keeps them warm, cook their food, and provides lights to the father so that he can read stories to his son at night. In other perspective, fire is the infrastructure of civilization, and it is the initial instrument of the devastation of civilization in the road, in the novel. Perhaps to carry the fire is to carry the seeds of civilization. As a conclusion, McCarthy, in his work, The Road, portrays a society in a state of crisis and chaos, a post-apocalyptic wasteland where survivors choose different strategies to sustain their survival. McCarthy, in his fictional journey, presents the post-apocalyptic society with a new social order. And these are some of the works cited references that we relied on in order to conduct our work. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Siddiq Ben Ali. So now we go to Miss Maria Slimani and Professor Ramdan Mehiri They belong to the interdisciplinary studies in language and culture, Algeria. The paper they're about to present is entitled Exploring the Social and Political Consequences of Plague through Francis Lawrence's film, I Am Legend, 2007. So the floor is yours. Maria Slimani. And Ramdan Mheri. I think she is somewhere, yes, I've seen her name here. Maria, do you hear me? Maria Slimani and Ramdan Mheri. Are you online?
They don't seem to be online, dear professor.
Okay,
Not
then
anymore.
So we go to the next.
And the next one.
Miss Angeli Mary L. Casoe. Huh?
Yes, from the Philippines.
Okay.
I don't think she's here too either.
Huh?
Miss Angeli Marie Casoe.
This Angeli Mary L. Casoe, Infinity Philippines Incorporation. So the paper is entitled Sahaya, an analysis of Filipinos' trauma, pain, and resiliency in the time of COVID-19 pandemic. So if you are online, the floor is yours.
No, she's not.
Eh?
She's not online.
Because look, for participants, I watched, I saw the name of Maria. No,
yes.
She's no longer here.
Yes, they might have lost their internet connection.
And only name, Maria, only, not the full name. And the professor is absent. No name. So we open the debate?
Yes, why not?
Okay. So the debate is open. We are expecting some comments and feedback and questions. Why not?
Yeah.
So, yes, Maria, yes, I am here. Yes, yes. Okay, you are welcome. So, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay. Okay. It's my first time to use this application of
no problem. No problem. Okay. But you shared the PPT. Yes, it's okay.
Could you see the PPT?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. I am Slimani Maria, a doctorate student from the University of Mohammed Khayder Biskra in Algeria. Through my presentation titled, as you see, Exploring the Social and Political Consequences of Plague through Francis Lawrence's film, I Am Legend, 2007. I would like to touch this topic of the conference from a different angle, on working on a different genre, which is post-apocalyptic film. As an outline of my presentation, I will start with an introduction, then I will introduce the research questions and the suggested thesis, and then I will move to the methodology that I have used in my research. After that, I will go through the analytical part, first through the thematic analysis and then shot-by-shot analysis. And at the end, I will conclude and close my presentation. As an introduction, Well, in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, many believe that science fiction has now been overtaken by reality. It has been recognized as an ingredient to understand an expected reality. In view of the globalization trend of film consumption, the research explores Black literature in the film adaptation of I Am Legend in showing the social and political consequences of Black. The film does ponder some deep questions about the collapse and persistence of human civilization. Well, in this research, I'm going to work on Richard's work, I Am Legend. Richard Matheson is famous with his works on horror and post-apocalyptic novels, and this is one of his famous works. Well, this famous work was adapted to many movies. Well, I think it's twice before this one that was adopted by Francis Lawrence in 2007. And this is regarded as the successful adaptation of this novel. The film I Am Legend is the third based on Richard Matheson's 1954 classic of the same title, preceded by The Last Man on Earth in 1964, starring Vincent Price, who is a very famous actor, and The Omega Man in 1971, starring Charlton Heston, also the famous political figure. I Am Legend in 2007 is an American post-apocalyptic action thriller film directed by Francis Lawrence from a screenplay by Akiva Goldsman and Mark Protosovich, and starring Will Smith as U.S. Army virologist Robert Neville. The film is set in New York City after a virus which was originally created to cure cancer, but it has swept out most of mankind, leaving Neville as the last human in New York, the last man on Earth, as they say. Other than nocturnal mutants, Neville is immune to the virus, and he works to develop a cure while defending himself against the hostile mutants. Well, the main research question is how individuals cope with the social and political consequences of the pandemic. Other sub-research questions are, what does it take to survive when the world comes crashing down? How do humans cope with isolation and loneliness in the light of a global outbreak? Another sub-question is, how do humans stay resilient, manage their growing stress, and somehow navigate through the crisis? Well, I suggest this thesis, which is investing conscious and unconscious knowledge, as well as feelings of pre-pandemic life in creating skills to cope with the change of the surrounding in order to fill the gap left by the absent society and destroyed political systems. The methodology that I have used in this research is actually two methods. I used Carl Jung's psychoanalytic concepts of conscious and unconsciousness and his notions about memories. And I also used shot-by-shot analysis, which is going through the cinematography techniques through the scenes of the movie. Actually, I will here explain the shot-by-shot analysis. Actually, it is studying the shot angle used in the scene and its effect on the projected atmosphere, and finding correlations between the found results about the frame, the soundtrack, the lighting, etc., to set them in the context of the film to create a thesis about the nature of the produced work. Actually, here I will go to directly to the analytical part where I will apply these concepts. First of all, I will present the social consequences and the political consequences projected through the movie. Actually, in the movie, we see Neville, the protagonist of the story, isolated and lonely as the last man on earth, as the only survivor. And here we see the social consequences of this pandemic, which is the isolation and loneliness of survivors. The other social consequence is the clash between individuals. Before, when the pandemic was in its first phase, we see a clash between individuals for surviving. Here, it is a chaotic condition where humans face each other. At the end, we see the eradication of most humankind before the hopeful end at the movie. And here it is a very difficult state faced by humans. For the political consequences, we see anarchism in the USA and the whole world. And it is projected through the setting, through the army, and through all the difficulties and the difficult conditions faced by individuals at the time. Also, the destruction of the infrastructure, the destruction also of all the buildings, everything. Now we see here how this individual survives the pandemic. It's here. These are the results of going through a psychoanalytic approach of Jungian psychoanalytic analysis. We see that Neville, the protagonist, reflects attachment to objects, animals, places with emotional value. And this is referred, according to Jung, to attachment to the past and what it holds to the human's mind. Another technique reflected by the individual is reminiscing, which is recalling memories about pre-pandemic life related to family, hobbies, profession, etc. Another method is self-care. We see Neville taking care of himself through healthy nutrition, exercising, and producing an outcome which is reflected through his moral state. Another method is recording oneself. Neville, the protagonist, films himself through his laptop in his lab and in his kitchen. He has these devices. He has these devices in his house. When he films himself expressing his feelings, expressing the progress of the development of the cure and other things, and even telling himself about stories of the past events and the present living conditions. Another thing is imagination, which is very essential in surviving, and it is also reflected and shown in the movie through Neville, who survives through imagining and visualizing the social life before the pandemic. And we are going to see a scene where he visualizes his life before the pandemic. So these are the methods reflected in the story of the movie and analyzed through Jungian analysis. So facing the political consequences, how is that? It is self-reliance, because we don't have a political system, and we don't have security provided by the political system. So the political system and its army has been proved insufficient to secure the country's citizens. So here the individual relies on himself in providing his security. So autonomous directing also is also there in the story. So working on one's conscious and unconsciousness to form a solid attitude towards the pandemic. Marcus Garvey, who is a famous African activist, is in one of his speeches, he says, whilst others might free the body, none but ourselves can free the mind. Mind is your only ruler, sovereign. So the story here plays much more with the individuals and conditions standing behind dichotomies of right and wrong, good and evil, and self and other through the post-pandemic life. So here in this scene, we see Neville creates an imaginary social encounters. Here he goes to a store in this empty city when most of humans died. Here he used a mannequin as real humans, living humans, and he starts negotiating with them and discussing with them as having a social conversation. Because he feels lonely and isolated, and he yearns for a social life. So this imagination helps him in going through 3 years of being alone in this pandemic. Another scene here, we see historical approach to political measures. Here we see army ship that is left after the outbreak of the pandemic, and it didn't help in stopping such a dilemma. So here we see Neville playing golf on the wing of the army ship and a plane, and we see him just there alone. And this is also another angle of the story, showing such a political and army measures that has nothing to do with the difficulties that is shown in the mind of this character. Another scene here is the emotional bonds and unity of efforts. Here through a very here it is shown through a godlike angle, which is an angle that is taken by the director from above, and it shows the whole scene through a wide shot. And here we see the character, the protagonist, in a dark atmosphere. And here Neville is close to his dog Sam, holding a weapon and protecting themselves. Here the emotional bond here helps in facing the mutants in the night. So this is another element of the story, which is a method to face the changes after the pandemic. So here Young has a very important quotation, which explains the conditions after the pandemic. Nevertheless, something remained. It was as if I now carried along with me everything I had ever experienced or done, everything that had happened around me. I consisted of my own history, and I felt with great certainty this is what I am. And this is, I think, what explains the attitude of Neville in dealing with the isolation and loneliness after the outbreak of the pandemic, when he uses his mind, his unconscious feelings and memories to face his reality. So there is also a symbolic depiction of the contrasted light and dark. In this scene, we see the director intentionally focuses on the lighting and darkness to show that the effect of darkness on the life of the individual. And here Lawrence insists on the intention of making this movie a place something magical about the empty city, as opposed to dark and scary that was the ideal of the whole cast. The soundtracks are also important for this movie and for depicting the social and political consequences of the pandemic. Actually, we see the non-diegetic sound, which is through the score of the movie, and also Bob Marley's songs of Redemption Song, Three Little Birds, Buffalo Soldier, and Start Up. So this shows the meanings of these songs through the themes of the story, because like the Redemption Song begins with the story of how the narrator has been persecuted for years by society and government, only to overcome the hardship. So this track is about life and hopeful end at the end. So here we see that the director uses these soundtracks to project the themes that the themes of the story. So, as the conclusion, facing the social and political consequences of the pandemic outbreak requires strong mind skills to cope with the surrounding change that actually has affected the human's mind as much as the body. So, the film's cinematography techniques also deals with the character Neville through projecting contrasted different realities: the pre-pandemic reality where he remembers his family and he remembers his profession and all his life before the pandemic, and also the reality of the lived pandemic and the characters constituted reality, which is his reminiscence and his imagination and his visualization. So this constituted reality helps him in facing the difficulties of the pandemic. This contrast is for the aim of showing the potentials of the human's mind in surviving the extremely different conditions. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I'm sick. I couldn't produce a good work. I apologize. I apologize.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Maria Slimani. Actually, the presentation is, in a way, is well done. You try to explain, and in a way, there are some questions probably that you will get from other participants, mainly the matter of reality between what we live and what is left in the film. Are they the same or not, and so on. So we go for the last time. We go for we try to listen to Angeli Marie Ann Kazoué. I know I don't know whether she is online or not. If not, we go to question and answer. What do you think, Professor, Doctor, inshallah, Professor Benjamil? Dr. Khawla Benjamil?
Yes, Professor, she's not here. I don't think she's here. We can just go to the Q&A session.
Okay,
and
Q&A.
we will finish in 4 minutes this session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are waiting for your questions.
May I? Hello, everyone.
Hello.
May I?
So Fatma Zahra بالخير.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and many thanks to all the participants and the organizers for the smooth flow of this plenary session. Actually, I have a question directed to Professor Françoise Besson, if she is here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, in your presentation, I see that you were arguing for fear in the literature. Its benefits, its morals, it means fear in the literature taught people how to survive, how to avoid contamination, etc. So you were arguing for this point. Actually, I'd like you to reflect also on the counter-argument, which says, for instance, that fear can be also, or reading much on the lot of about fear in the literature can be also a source of anxiety and stress among the readers. So this is the counter-argument of what you were arguing for. So how would you refute this counter-argument since you are for literature and fear?
Yes, I think you are absolutely right. And I think that literature, plague literature particularly, generates fear and anxiety, particularly anxiety when we read the books. So when we are in the books, in the novels, in the novella, etc., we fear that anxiety. But I think that once the book is closed, there are questions in our mind. And there is, what I mean is that there is something that is going to happen within our minds. We are going to think about what we have just read and see why that anxiety has been generated and what are the reasons of that anxiety. And perhaps this will help us to be more attentive in reality to those sources in anxiety. This is what I meant. I don't mean that there is no anxiety when we read that kind of books. On the contrary, there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, but I think it's after that something is happening in our minds to try to simply to be more attentive to what happens in reality.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I see your point, and thank you for clarifying the point to me.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, I have a question myself to also for Dr. Professor Françoise Besson. Since you said I've spoken about anxiety and fear, don't you think that writing in itself is a kind of therapy? It is to defy fear through words, through reading.
Of course, writing is clearly a kind of therapy, and I practice it myself. And whenever we have problems, I think the fact of being face to face with the page and trying to face things with memory or imagination is a therapy, is one of the best therapies, I think. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
And reading too, of course.
Yes. I think because the more we describe, the more the artist describes, the more he defies. It means, in other words, when we read or when we write, we are producing, you are freeing one's inside. We project one's internal into the external, we exteriorize, and then we liberate oneself somehow.
Yes, this is exactly the point. There is a kind of liberation, and I think this is the point. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So, any other question?
Yeah, can I have another presenter since there is no more questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much for your generous welcoming to this question. Actually, my second question is directed to Dr. Siddiq bin Ali from the University of
Benghazi. Yes. So it's yes, to Siddiq bin Ali. I think whether I don't know whether he's with us or not. Mr. Siddiq bin Ali, do you hear us? Are you with us? Still with us? Mr. Siddiq bin Ali, the question is for you. I think he's not here.
Really.
Anyway, you just give it for us. Probably we try to.
I first thought to thank him, okay, for the presentation he did, okay, because his presentation was really precise, concise, and especially his accents, okay. He's a native like speaker, okay, that I enjoyed listening to him. And my question is, in the end of his presentation, he was mentioning some conceptualizations of survival that McCarthy had done or had emphasized or tackled on his novel, The Road. And my question is, what of the concepts or which of the concepts is new to the title of the novel, The Road? Or what in the story that reflects or that leads the writer of the novel, McCarthy, to call it The Road? Is it a road to survival? Is it a road to avoid the contamination of the viruses? So what road is really, or what aspect is in the novel symbolizes the title, The Road?
Yes.
Yeah, because in his presentation, he mentioned many things, but he didn't relate things to the title. So I was eager to know, especially that I am not specialist in literature. I am specialized in didactics, but I enjoyed learning things that I am not specialized on, and that's why I'm here. So simply to help me know why it was called Road. Okay, or what aspect in the novel make this title Road come to arise like that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's very pity he's not with us. It's in fact he could. Yes, he's not here. It's very pity. What I can say is that on the road, or the road is a way to go where we have A and B, and we are all on the road. Yes, the road is a movement. If we don't move freely, we will be moved by time, by circumstances, and even the idea of survival. So it is conscious and unconscious. Survival is innate. A human being tries to save himself, whatever is the problem. So it's natural within a human being. It is innate. This idea of survival. Survival, threat, fear. When we fail to know, we try to escape without having any pre-established in a way. That's why probably the road is a road that everyone must take, whether conscious or unconscious. This is what I can say. But it's very pity he's not here.
Okay. Thank you for your.
Anyway, thank you very much for your question. It's really very pertinent.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, Odisha. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just to carry on with your interesting comment on The Road. In fact, I have read the novel. It is the voyage of a father and his son after the apocalyptic time in the United States of America. It is very difficult and dangerous. I mean, for those who didn't read the novel. And the voyage, so the road is very important. It is a kind of an optimistic way of looking at the destination rather than. So here, the road is in fact all this adventure of the father and the son for the sake of trying to rebuild again, to reconstruct again a kind of life after the apocalypse. That's what I want to add. Thank you.
Mainly, thank you. It looks like Exodus, Exodus. But as you see, as what you said is very important, we have the father and the son. The father is tradition. The son belongs to the father. So they get together, probably the father goes away, but the son holds his entity. It could be this too. Yes.
And despite the fact that it is a kind of dystopian version of Jack Kerouac On the Road, I don't know if you have.
On the road,
already
Jack
had-
Kerouac, yes.
It is
yes,
a
on the
kind of
road.
dystopian version because on
Yes.
the road it is a kind of happy voyage, but the road is a dystopian version of Jack Kerouac's On the Road.
Yes, yes, that's right. Yes, the road is a movement from one place to another, from something bad to something good. We are trying to, it is from living to expectation.
Exactly.
Probably expectation could not be the same, but we expect something better. Yet probably it could not. It's like another film of The Wilden, I think, inspired from The Wild, a novel of I've forgotten his name. Anyway, it's the character is living within the jungle far from society, and he tries in a way to be his own and to generate his own morality. So, and the idea is, can we live without society? This is also another. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Olisa.
Thank you. I think we need to end this session.
Okay, then thank you very much for all, for you, Dr. Benjamil, and wish you good luck for the afternoon session.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you. Hope to see you soon. Hope to see you in the coming sessions at 12:30 Algeria time.
Thank you, Dr. Benjamin. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for engaging in the Q&A session. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, enjoy your lunch. See you later. Thank you, Professor Burigbi, so much for your effective management, for being here for us, for your support.
It's my pleasure to be among you, mainly in this field that I appreciate a lot.
Thank you. We do appreciate it. Thank you for your effective management and for supporting us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, teacher.
Bye.